public speaking is the number one fear. And I know for a lot of people, public speaking is a fear. But if you really think about it, it's not the fear of public speaking. The real fear is actually the fear of judgment, right? Because when we are speaking, what are we thinking? Oh, what are people going to think about me? What are they saying? What if something happens? What if I forget what I was supposed to say? What if they don't believe me? What if they think, I'm a jerk? All the things we are thinking in our brain, those are the fears that are coming up, the doubts about whether or not you are good enough to really, communicate the message that you're trying to communicate. Those are the things that are really driving what we call as the fear. So it's not the actual fear. It's not public speaking that's the actual fear. It's the judgment that we think is going to come along with us being out there in the world and speaking in public. Now, I have not always been this person who's like, I'll speak anytime, anywhere, call me, I don't care. Big stage, small stage, virtual, in person, I'm good. I was not always that way. When I went to college, so I went to college at the age of 16. And when I went to college, I took this class on, I forget, I think it was called public speaking or speech or something like that. And we would have to do these speeches every week for homework and, then come in and present them to the class. And I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. The teacher would ask me, tell me it's my time. And I'm like, no, just give it to somebody else. Let somebody else do it. I have no desire to do this whatsoever. And, I just really was not into this. Fast forward to me deciding, just on a whim one day that I was going to go to law school. Now, how far is that from, oh, you don't want to speak, to, oh, you want to be a lawyer, your job, right? Not only do you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a criminal defense attorney. So you're going to be in the courtroom. So you're going to have to speak in front of a whole bunch of people. And so go off to law school. And in law school, they don't really teach us, to be lawyers. They teach us to think, which is great. They teach us to analyze information really well. But I had a class called Courtroom is Theater. It was my favorite class because it really taught us how to perform in the courtroom and use all of who we were. So the mechanics of speaking and then the strategy of speaking, and put all of that together and really understand how to convey a message. So as an attorney, I am advocating on behalf of my client, and I'm trying to convince a jury to see things my way. The art of and skill of communication requires you to not just be really good at the mechanics, right? The tone, the volume, the rate, and the pitch, which is how we do the speaking, right? But the what and the why. So it'll be one thing for me to be great as a performer in terms of speaking in front of a jury, but if I couldn't convince them about my message, my client's point of view, they would never rule in my client's favor. Now, they could still rule against me, but my ability to communicate and advocate for my client was much more than just me, using my rate, the tone, the pitch. All of that is necessary, but we also, especially when you're talking about communicating in a leadership role, you have to be able to get your message across. If you can't get your message across, then what you're doing is useless. And this is what's happening for a lot of us, is that we're in these conversations every day, whether we're in an interview, whether we're in a one-on-one conversation, we're leading a team meeting, we're in a really important stakeholder discussion, we're at board retreats, wherever we are, we're just talking. We're talking without any strategy. And it's very important for me, for you to understand that there is strategy when it comes to communication, not just the performance aspect of it. And many of the questions that I get asked about are about the performance aspects or the mechanics of speaking. So I'll answer those today, but I'll also answer some questions just around strategy and making sure that we are looking at the why and the what of what we're communicating, in addition to looking at the how around communication. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Just jump on in with me. But I'm going to go through, I have some questions here that I am going to answer. And then if you have any questions, let me know. This, again, is my first LinkedIn Live audio, so I don't really know how this works. I don't really know how it all works, but we're going to figure this out together, because I think I could look at comments and I could see stuff. So just let me know. Let me know what's happening. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here's a question. What's the best way to prepare for a presentation? So I think this is a great question. What's the best way to prepare for a presentation? This really is a broad question in terms of how do you prepare for a presentation, because there's the preparation related to actually developing and preparing the presentation itself. There is the preparation for getting ready to give the presentation. And then there is actually, the day of and preparing on that day to give the presentation. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of each. So when you're thinking about preparing a presentation, what you want to think about first is, who is this presentation for? One of the biggest mistakes that speakers make is thinking that it's about them. When we're speaking, this is not about you. This is about the audience. This is about the people who you have been asked to shift in some way, to transform in some way. Therefore, when you're preparing your presentation, the presentation has to be prepared for them. Oftentimes, we want to tell our story and tell what we think and how. Listen, don't worry about all that. Right? Talk to your audience. So when you're preparing, part of that preparation is assessing who your audience is going to be and what is the journey that you need to take them on in that moment. That is how you're going to actually prepare the actual presentation, because you need to look at what is their current state, what is their desired state or the transformation that they're seeking? And then how are you going to be the solution, because your presentation is actually the solution. Now, let's move to, okay, I've gotten my presentation together. Now, how do I prepare to be an amazing speaker? How do I prepare to have an amazing delivery on stage? Some people like to memorize their speech. I'll tell you that that is a mistake. Memorizing your speech is one of the things that gets you into that fear, because if I memorize the speech and I get on stage and I forget to say something, what's going to happen is my brain's like, oh, but wait, you were supposed to be saying this. And now I'm in this fight because I forgot what I was supposed to say, or I said the wrong thing, or I said something out of order. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get back to that thing. Memorizing is going to drive you crazy. So do not memorize your speech. Internalize your speech. So instead of memorizing, internalize the speech. Because when you internalize the speech, it just becomes part of who you are. So no matter if you forget something, or you have to, your time is cut short, or you skip over a piece, you'll know the journey, right? You'll know what you're supposed to be doing. And it just becomes part of who you are. I always talk about, when I teach my clients about how to present and how to develop their talks, when I help them develop their talks, is really developing a talk from your soul and from your why. When you understand what your why is, and you understand the journey that you have to take your audience on, those two things combined together, you'll never forget, because it's all about you. Like it's all from you, not about you, it's from you. So you're not going to forget. So you don't have the need to memorize. You just have the need to internalize the talk. So how do you internalize a talk? Practice. Practice. And that practice could be, I will say the practice should be that you actually practice the talk as if you were delivering it. Sometimes what we do is we practice like, okay, let me just walk through it. They're going to say, and I'm going to say this and da, 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 and we play with it. If you play with it, that is how you're going to show up, right? Because you haven't really internalized the talk. But if you actually practice the talk, practice all of the different intonations, practice your hand movements, practice your body movements, practice everything about the talk as if you were giving it, and just do it over and over. What will happen is that it will be internalized. It will just become part of who you are. And you have to listen to it. I know some people hate listening to their voice. I used to hate listening to my voice, listening to recordings of me speaking, and now I truly enjoy it. I will sit back and listen to a video and I'll just smile. I'll just smile about what I've been saying because one, I really love what I speak about. And two, it just is good to hear myself. And what it will do for you when you record it and then you listen to it, you get to see if things, some people write their speeches, if you'll get to see that the way that you write is not the way that you speak. And sometimes it doesn't translate well. It's not a one-to-one translation. And so we have to be really careful about that. And we have to practice it so that we see if it lands the way that we want it to land. If the way that we wrote something is the way that we really want to say it, or if it needs to be said in a different way, or maybe it doesn't need to be said at all. Or you realize that, oh, that's kind of out of context. I need to move this here, or I need to add more meat to the bone of this part of the presentation. Or you know what? I thought that quote fit in here, or those statistics were really cool, but they really don't add any flavor. They really don't add anything to this. Or maybe you find that you need a story. You do need, some statistic. You need something that's going to underpin and bolster your argument. So being able to listen to it. And what I do often is I'll record myself on Zoom, and then while I'm walking or, I'm just sitting around, I'll just keep playing it. I just keep playing it and playing it and playing it so that I listen and I can hear it, and now it will be internalized. So that's a way. Now, what happens when you get on the stage and it's time to present? It is go time. Now what happens? Because now all the nerves, all the things are going to kick in. What do you do then? You got to breathe. Right? So you just know that this is the day. You have done everything that you could do. You made sure that you prepared the presentation in a way that is audience focused. You practiced so that you could internalize it. And now it's just time to deliver. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in being perfect. One of the things I always tell my speakers is your goal is to be powerful, not perfect. When we get tied into like it has to be perfect, like I'm on this stage and somebody paid me or they didn't pay me, and everybody's looking at me, all eyes on me, it's all good. Your goal is to be powerful and not to be perfect. So that was a long answer to that one question. But it also brings me, there was another question that I wanted to bring in on that point, which is how do you manage the nerves, right? So now you're on stage. How do or you're getting ready to go on stage. How do I manage the nerves? It's easy, right? It's easy. And I know people will say, no, Kelly, it's not that easy. Here's the thing. Those nerves, just think of it as being excitement instead of being the fear and the anxiety. But here are 3 things that you can do before you go on stage or even when you get on stage. One is to breathe. Often what happens to us when we get excited or we get nervous, we forget to breathe. Even if you think about when you're exercising, right? When you're working out and there's a stress behind it, we hold our breath. This is what's happening, right? So we're getting scared and our body is getting tensed up. No, you have to breathe. You really do have to breathe. And whether it's a virtual presentation or it is an in-person presentation, breathe. So when somebody introduces you, say for instance, let's talk about an in-person event. In-person event, they introduce you, hey, welcome to the stage, our next speaker, Kelly Charles Collins. And you get on stage and all these people are looking at you and you're like, oh, I have to start speaking immediately. I have to get going because they've been waiting on me. No, you don't. Breathe. Take a moment to anchor yourself, breathe, scan the audience, and then speak. That moment of just taking that pause and breathing is going to really calm your nervous system. It's the same thing on virtual. Virtual, I think, is even more amplified because we're in these boxes and everybody's looking at you, right? Or you think everybody's looking at you in these boxes. So you really think in that moment, oh no, I have to speak up like right away. You don't. Same thing, breathe for a second, survey, and then speak, right? Again, that will calm your nervous system. A second strategy that you can use is to move your body so that you get rid of that type of nervous energy. So if you're backstage and they're introducing you, walk around, pace. Move your body, stretch, do something to get that energy out, to move that energy in a different way so that you're not focused on, oh my gosh, I am so scared. Don't be scared, right? Just be excited about it. So move your body in some way. Some people jump, some people run, some people do push-ups, do all the kind of stuff. Listen, I'm not doing any push-ups and I'm not jumping around because I don't need to be sweating. So I'm not doing all that. But do what you need to do in order to just move your body to help you to just get some of those nerves out. And the third strategy that you can use is to just reframe what's happening. So reframe the anxiety into excitement. Be happy. Think this is awesome. Listen, I'm getting ready to go on stage. Again, whether it's a virtual stage or an in-person stage, I'm getting ready to go on stage and I am going to change people's lives, right? When I work with my clients to create their talks or their presentations, we use what's called the ITS framework. So it's all about creating intrigue, transforming your audience, and shifting perspectives. How amazing is that you have the ability through your voice, through what you know, to really be able to impact the lives of people that are in that room. Like, be excited about that. Don't be nervous about that. Be excited. So if you start to reframe like, wow, how powerful is this? That my voice, I talk about your voice being your superpower. How powerful is it that I get to use my voice to go out there and change the world, right? So just reframe it. So those are 3 ways that we can manage those nerves. All right. Here's another question. How do I stop myself from using filler words like and like, right, all the things, right? All the filler words. Well, this might shock some of you because I don't think that you should have to sterilize your speech. I don't feel that you need to sterilize your content I won't say in any way. I just don't think you need to sterilize it in the way that some people want you to sterilize. There are people who say you cannot say any of those filler words. Like, you should absolutely not have any of those filler words in your content, because if you do, it makes people think that you don't know what you're talking about, makes people think that you're not confident, it makes people not want to listen to you. I believe that's BS, right? I say right. I know that that's a tick that I have, and I pay attention to it sometimes, and I try to stop myself sometimes. But you know what happens when you get so uberly focused on trying to sanitize your speech? You get more nervous. People get more nervous because you're thinking, oh, I have to wait. Oh, I just said, oh, I wasn't supposed to say like, oh, no. Now, don't be mistaken that I'm saying it's okay to just have a whole speech full of fillers, right? I'm not saying yeah, but the best thing, yeah, and I really liked it was it's great. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about don't think that it has to be completely sterilized and sanitized like we're going into surgery. No, we're speaking. We're having a conversation, right? A keynote speech, a breakout session, a workshop, a team meeting, a town hall, a panel, a media interview, a podcast interview. I don't care what it is, it's a conversation. Even if it's you talking to the camera, right? It's a conversation like I'm doing right now. I can't see anyone. I know Brucey's here with me, but it's a conversation. And when you have a conversation, sometimes we say stuff like, like. And here's the thing. Most people, when they're listening to you, unless their job is, the buzzer person to buzz you every time you say or some other filler word, or it is every other, word in your content and your speech to the point that it gets annoying. Most people are not going to pay attention to that, especially if you have prepared your speech or your content in such a way that it is engaging the audience and that they are so enrolled in it because you have built this for them. So while it is absolutely necessary to not fill your speech with filler words, I think it is also a grave mistake to absolutely get so honed in and so laser focused on taking all of those out of your speech. Internalize the speech and deliver it. And however you deliver it powerfully, not perfectly. Removing every filler word is about being perfect. The goal is to be powerful. So I don't believe in, completely sterilizing, sanitizing, and taking everything out. But I do believe that you have to be, you have to have a speech that is not filled with it, but it does not have to be completely devoid of it. So that's my take on that. All right, here's another one. Let's talk about, what do I do if I forget what I was going to say? So in the beginning, I talked about how people fear, like the number one fear is public speaking. And I said, really, the number one fear is the judgment. This is one of the things where the judgment is scaring the living crap out of us because we're thinking, if I get on that stage and I forget what I was supposed to say, people are going to think A, B, C, D of me. Here's the great thing. Here's the most fantastic thing about creating your own speech and creating your own presentation. Don't nobody know what you were going to say. They don't know what you were going to say. They don't know. And so only you know. So if you get so tied into the fact that, oh my gosh, I just forgot what I was going to say. And now people are thinking this, that, nobody, they don't know. They have zero idea that you were supposed to say A instead of B. Now, what if you completely just freeze? This has happened to me. Right. I'm thinking I'm supposed to be speaking and then I'm trying to get a word, and actually just happened in this audio. There's a word that I'm trying to get out or a place that I'm trying to go, and my brain just freezes. And I'll just say, oh, I just had a brain freeze. I don't worry about that people are going to think, oh my gosh, I can't believe she just said that. Yep, I sure did. You know why? Because I'm human. And so is everybody else in the audience. And so if you forget, pause, just breathe. Don't get crazy, just breathe. And if you don't know the next thing that was supposed, just keep moving. But here's the thing about when I said, go back to the question that I answered about memorizing versus internalizing. When you internalize, it will come back to you. When you build your talk, we use very specific frameworks to build talks, depending on whether you want to motivate people to take action or you're trying to advocate a position. But once you use those frameworks, even if you have that moment of, ooh, I just forgot what the heck I was supposed to say, those frameworks will come back to you and you can start to talk, you will start to get back into the message. So don't get freaked out by it. Really don't get freaked out by the fact that you forgot. One, nobody knows. And two, just breathe. And if you have to repeat what you said so that it gets your brain moving back into the momentum of where you were, then do that too. Don't worry about it. You could just say, I really want to re-emphasize the point that I just made because I want to make sure that you got that. And then just say it again. Just say it again. It's okay. Now, a corollary to that is, what if you have a PowerPoint presentation and you are, going along, singing a song, as my mom says, and you have your presentation and all of a sudden technology goes out, lights go out. For some reason, the projector stops working. And now I no longer have my PowerPoint presentation. Whew, that's a whole thing right there. What will happen for many people is if you have memorized or you have tied yourself so much to that PowerPoint, you are going to be stuck. But if you internalize the message, just keep moving. Oh, the PowerPoint went out. Okay, we're just going to keep going. If you build your talk, your presentation, your pitch, whatever it is on a framework, you'll be able to keep going because you'll know where you were and you'll know where you need to go because it's a journey. It's not let me say this. What happens is that some people, when they build their talks, it's just these chunks of information. They have no relation to each other. And therefore, when something happens, you don't have a way to have kind of a through line. You don't have a way to continue the journey because it was just, I'm talking about this over here and then this over here, and then I'm just going to give you this over here. You've heard people who speak about like that. You've also heard people who take you on this journey. And so there's a path that you're going on. And for you, the speaker, you also know that there's a path. And so if something happens, technology happens, your brain kind of freezes for a minute, somebody says something crazy in the audience, you can gather yourself and continue speaking. Okay, let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Let's see. What happens? Okay, let's see, how do I make the closing? I'm going to talk about the opening and the closing. How do I make the opening and the closing of my speech more memorable, more impactful? We've all been to see people speak, and the first thing when they get on stage is like, hi, I'm so glad that you're here, and thank you to this person and that person for bringing me, and da da da. That's a waste of time. That is a waste of time and a waste of space and a waste of really a waste of the connection that you need to form with your audience. When you get on that stage, you have to take hold of that stage, right? We talk about taking the deep breath or, breathing. That doesn't take a lot of time. That takes moments. But right after that, you got to get going. And you need to start with a story. You need to start with a question. You need to start with a provocative statement. Maybe you start with a statistic, something that is going to bring the audience. They've been waiting for you to get on the stage. They don't care that you want to thank, the host for bringing you and you're so excited and the weather is good outside. They don't care about any of that. They've been waiting and they're ready to go. So when you want to open with something that is going to really intrigue them and pull them in or create some type of connection with them. On the opposite end, when you're closing, a lot of people like to say, oh, thank you so much for being here. Same thing, right? Same kind of opening and closing. Forget all that too. You want to close with something, again, that is impactful. It can be a quote. It can be a call to action, depending on what you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur and you want people to come speak to you, or, to enroll in some course that you have, or buy some program, or go to an event, you want to make sure that they know that. And so that's what you want to focus on. That's how you want to close this out. If you want people to take action, say, for instance, you're doing a leadership training or culture building training, or just some training inside of the workplace, and what you need is for them to adopt a new position, really think about the change their attitude, change their behavior, change their work habits, then you need to say that's how you close. And you can say thank you at the end, or you can bow, or you can, just do whatever you need to do to let people know that you're finished. But the whole thing about, oh, I'm so glad, thank you all for being here and all that stuff, you don't need all that, right? So really think about, how do I powerfully bring them in? And then how do I powerfully activate them at the end, so that there's something for them to do. They know that, yes, I'm going to leave here and do something. And in order for you to be able to do that at the end, you have to have really created something masterful for them in the middle that was taking them on a journey that they think at the end, yeah, this is the only choice for me, is to take whatever action the person, you are saying for them to take. Okay. Let's see. What should I do if I start to lose my audience's attention? So this is all around audience engagement, and it's hard. It's hard to keep people's attention these days, right? Because everything is quick, fast, and in a hurry. We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have all these things. We have all these things scrolling. I want the information quickly. I don't want to sit around and hear it. After a while, if you're in a presentation, you're in a meeting, you're doing, listening to a podcast, you're doing whatever, all of a sudden you're in the scrolling. We're back to scrolling. In order to keep people's attention, they have to be invested in what you're speaking about. They have to see that this can impact or change or, better improve their life in some way. If you're speaking and you have their attention, and then all of a sudden their attention starts to wane, you need to think about, okay, what has changed in my presentation? Did I move to an area that maybe now I'm speaking too technically? Maybe I'm speaking beyond the audience, right? In terms of maybe educational level or knowledge level, am I speaking beyond them? Am I speaking below them? Have I gotten to a point where I'm now giving them information that is basic, that they are like, but I already know that? And this comes from also understanding your audience in the first place. So once you see the audience start to wane, you have to figure out what happened in that moment that made them drop off. And then you have to pivot. And one of the things that you might be able to do is, stop and ask a question, engage them, start to engage them again. Do something that is a pattern interrupt, because clearly something has switched them off and you've got to switch them back on. So think about what it is that was keeping their attention. Look at, in the moment, and this is going to have to be fast, right? In the moment. And then you're going to have to pivot. So this all comes back to understanding your presentation, understanding the audience, understanding what is it that you're trying to get them to do? Are you, what are you trying to activate for them? What are you trying to advocate to them? And you're going to have to switch in the moment, and understanding your topic will allow you to do that, to switch in that moment. Okay, so that's how you could do that. How do I handle distractions while I'm speaking? How do I handle distractions while I'm speaking? because we know we have some hecklers sometimes. Or we have that one person who always has to ask that weird question or ask a question to try to challenge you. In the moment, you feel the offense of it. You feel that, oh my, this person is so rude. This is so disrespectful. And you feel the offense of it. In that moment, you can be focused on the insult of what's happening, or you can focus on the mission, but you can't do both things. So if somebody is distracting, if somebody is heckling, if somebody is being disrespectful, the thing to do in that moment is to retake control of the room, because what they're trying to do is take control from you. So you need to address it. And you can address it in different ways. And depending on how bad it is, would depend on, how you address it. Some people have to be removed from the room. So you can ask people, someone to remove them if someone is there to remove them, or you can ask them to leave. Other people, sometimes people just want to be heard. And so you might just say, that's a great question, or I'm glad to hear you speak up. Can you stick a pin in that for a minute and I will speak to you about that later? Or that's a great question. It's not relevant, or it's not in line with what we're talking about right now, but perhaps you and I can have a separate conversation about that. But right now I want to make sure that everyone that's here, including you, get what you came for. So again, it's retaking control of the conversation. Sometimes it's a look. Sometimes you just got to give them that look, right? But the whole point, hi, Amika, the whole point is really to take back the control of the room when somebody distracts you, right? Because a distractor, a heckler, is seeking attention. Give them the attention that they deserve. So what is the attention that they deserve? As I said, the attention they deserve could mean that they got to go. Right? That's the attention that you're going to get out. But the other part of that is, again, the attention is, I hear you, I see you, but what you have brought up in this moment does not align and is actually taking away from what other people are here to learn. So let's focus on this, and then you and I can have a conversation about that afterwards. And Amika or Brucey, if you have any questions and you want to jump on, I am happy to answer your specific questions. I think you can also put them in the comments. Again, this is my first LinkedIn audio, so I'm doing what I could do with this. Let's see. Let me see what other questions I have on here, because I have a whole bunch of questions. How can I improve my public speaking skills over time? The way to do this is practice. It's just like any other skill. Speaking is a skill. Speaking is an art. How do you improve an art? How do you improve a skill? You practice, you get coaches, you get mentors. So one of the things that I'm doing is what's called the High Stakes Arena. And the High Stakes Arena is an in-person 3-day event that I'm doing in Orlando in October, which is all about elevating your communication skills. It's how to take the mechanics of speaking and the strategy of speaking and integrate them to allow you to communicate more powerfully, to communicate with power and influence. You can go to highstakesarena.live to get more information about that. But if you really want to understand how to be a powerful communicator, that's the place to be. You want to be in the room. It's one thing for me to do these types of audios and videos and talk to you about it. It's a whole nother thing for you to actually practice. So High Stakes Arena is about practicing. This is going to be, we're going to play games that show you and elevate and amplify and illustrate different communication skills, and also do role playing so that you actually practice the skills, because there's nothing like practicing it to improve these skills. I can tell you all day, every day, what to do. If you don't get to do it and not do it when, it really counts, then, that's not going to help you. You have to practice this and have a space in which to practice. And that's why I'm hosting the High Stakes Arena in October. So if you want to know more, I'm actually going to drop it. I think I can drop it in the comments. Yeah, I'm going to drop this in the comments the high stakes arena, and you can grab your ticket there. So let me put that, and then I'm going to get back to my questions. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. And if you're watching, if you're listening, because I think you can, this gets replayed, I don't know. Then you can put it in the comments and I'll come back to that. Here's a question. What should I do if I get a negative reaction from the audience? This is, for some people, this is the kiss of death, to get a negative reaction. One of the things that I've been using, there is a product called Talkadot, a software, and you can use Talkadot at the end of your presentation or during your presentation to get the audience to give you feedback, right? To give you testimonials. And sometimes I think, ooh, I don't want to put it in there, but I do. And inevitably, right? There might be somebody who's going to say something negative. And what is the thing that we do? Unfortunately, you could have 100 people respond to you, and just one says something bad, says something negative. 99 people tell you how amazing you are. And we focus on that one negative comment. Here's the thing. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody is going to agree with what you have to say. Not everyone is going to agree with the delivery. Not everyone's happy. Not everybody, has a good soul and they want to make you feel bad about something. The thing about that is, take it in as information. Keep the parts that make sense and then throw away the parts that don't. I always say what other people think about you is not information, it's data. And just like any other data can be manipulated. So if you take that data, that one person out of 100, and make that the absolute truth about your entire presentation, you're manipulating the data in a way that doesn't serve you. If you look at that data, however, and say, that's interesting that that person said that, or that's interesting that they had that take, you could agree with it or you could disagree with it. Or perhaps you might say, oh, I never really thought about that. I'll give you an example. I did a presentation and I was talking about, it was my keynote called the V-Suite, and it was talking about women and women's freedom to speak and really get rid of the societal programming. One of the pictures that I used, I was talking about the glass ceiling and the sticky floor, and I had a picture of a woman. It was a picture of a woman under a glass, and she was in a suit, and just the positioning of her. And one of the people, one of the women who saw that presentation wrote to me in my Talkadot testimonial about the use of that picture and how she didn't think the picture was appropriate or fit with, what I was talking about. And at first I was like, huh? But then I really thought about it. I was like, yes, that's a great data point. If what I'm trying to get across is not getting across because of a visual, then I need to be mindful about that. And there's other visuals that I could use. Now I could be mad about that and say, well, I'm just going to use it. Or I could take it in and say, oh my gosh, my presentation was horrible. She's probably not the only one who was thinking that. I could do all that. Or I could just take the data in and manipulate it to what makes me better the next time. So, really be mindful of that. Another thing that comes up for people is, how do I deal with something that's controversial? I need to talk about something that's controversial, but people are going to be upset, but I really want to stay true to myself. This is really how I feel. This is my point of view. What do I do with that? This is important, when you are building your talk or your presentation, if you know that there are things that people are going to object to, you have got to address that. You've got to address it up front. So one of the things that when I'm helping clients, craft messages is we look at what I call accept, reject. What do we know people are going to accept outright? That right, amen corner, you don't have to worry about it. But what are the things that people can possibly reject? There's going to be some objection to it. There's going to be some pearl clutching. There's going to be some, arm folding, all the things. There's going to be some eye rolling. What are those things? And you've got to address those things. So, for example, when I do unconscious bias training, I know that there are people who have zero desire to be listening to me about that, right? They don't want to hear it. And I'll say stuff like that. Like, listen, I know everybody's not into this. Or I'll say, I always tell them, it's like a lot of things that I talk about is it's like planting seeds. I'm going to plant it. And for some people, it's going to take root. For some people, you're going to have to water it a little bit. And for some people, you're like, take that out of my garden. They don't want to hear it. Right? So I talk about it like that. I might say something like, I know this is going to rub some of y'all the wrong way. Right? So for example, when I talk about imposter syndrome, I don't believe in it. I think it's something that has been really just elevated to hold women back. And so, I'll say, clutch your pearls or put on your seatbelt, because I know some of y'all are not going to like this. Those are the ways, like you have to do it head on, because one, the people who are in your amen corner are going to amen with you. And the people who may have some type of resistance to it are like, okay, she's at least thinking about me. She's thought enough about me being in this audience and perhaps having an objection, or right. So that they feel that they're being heard, that they feel that they are being included in the conversation. And so your ability to understand those objections and then to address them, what it will do is it will keep them in the conversation. If you don't address that objection, what's going to happen is that they are going to drop out of the conversation. So you're going along great. And everybody's like, oh, this is great. And then you hit this speed bump. And the rest of the amen corner is going to continue. But the people who are not in the amen corner, they're not going to continue if you do not address them outright. They're going to be stuck there because now they're mad at you. Now they're, rolling their eyes. Now they're like, well, what made them say that? Or, who do they think they are? They're going to be stuck. And your goal is to take everybody on the journey, whether or not they decide at the end of the journey to do what you're asking them to do or to change in any way, or that they've transformed or shifted. Your goal is to take everybody on the journey as far as you can take them. And so being able to anticipate objections and then also address the objection is going to help you to really do that. Okay. What else I got on this little handy sheet over here? How do I balance the technical aspects of speaking, so tone and body language, with the need to stay authentic? Authentic communication is hard for some people. This is hard, especially so when you're thinking about in the corporate space, and we're always talking about bring your authentic self to work, and then you're like, you sure about that? You really want me to bring this authentic self? So the thing about bringing your authentic self, and then the way that you use your tone and you use your body language, I always think about communication and all of really navigating spaces. I think of it as a game and understanding what are the rules of the game. And if I understand what the rules are and I understand how to win the game, then I can figure out how I'm going to play the game. So when we're talking about communication, two things, whether we're having, just a general conversation or we're in these meetings and we're trying to shift behavior or do something, is to understand what is your intention or your purpose and what is the objective. So what is it that you're trying? Why are you trying to do this? Why are you having this conversation? Why are you having this meeting? Why are you going on this podcast? Why is this interview important to you? And then lastly, what is the objective? So what are you trying to get out of it for you? And what is it that you hope that other people get out of it? So understanding the intention and the objective, those are the bookends. And so when you're thinking about how do I authentically create this, then you can look at, okay, what's the tone that I need to use? What's the pitch? How fast or slow do I need to speak? How authentic do I need to be? Right. And when I say how authentic do I need to be, it's always being authentically you, but at what level, right, do I get to speak in slang, right? Or do I get to, come in my Converse? I do all those things. You've heard it throughout today, right? You have to know what authenticity means to you and then show up in that space, but you might have to adjust you might have to adjust the mechanics, right? How do you use your body? What do you wear? What is the level, your volume that you're speaking at? That has nothing to do with being inauthentic. That has to do with being powerful and being a powerful communicator who understands how to influence people. This is why I always say with code switching, I know people get upset about code switching, but for me, I think code switching is a powerful strategic tool. The ability to know who's in the audience and to still be authentic, but be able to moderate or change your speech, your pattern, so that the mission gets accomplished, right? Because we always have to be focused on the mission. Again, sometimes we focus on the insult. And so sometimes we take on the insult of code switching, which I understand, but we forget the mission and the reason that we may have to switch, right? The way that we present something or the way that we say something or the way that we deliver something is because we're on a mission to accomplish something. That's how I always think about it. I'm on a mission to achieve a certain objective, and however it is that I need to do that, I'm going to do that. That's about understanding the game, the rules of the game, and knowing how to win the game. So that's been a lot. We've been on here for almost an hour. I hope that you really got some good nuggets out of this. My goal is always to make sure that I leave you with value. So I want to invite you to the High Stakes Arena. The High Stakes Arena, again, is a 3-day immersive interactive experience where I will be teaching you all of these things and more in person, but we'll actually be doing it. So it's not just about me speaking, it's also about you doing the thing. So thank you all for joining me on this. I will be doing more of these LinkedIn Live audios. I'm also going to be doing more videos. But if you have questions about public speaking or anything to do with communication skills, just drop them. You can always DM me. You can drop them in the comments under here. Do #replay. And I would love to know your thoughts. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Public Speaking FAQs. I answered some of these questions live. And if you have any other questions, let me know. But other than that, go get your ticket for the High Stakes Arena in Orlando in October, the 23rd through the 25th. Go to highstakesarena.live.com. highstakesarena.live. Sorry, highstakesarena.live. And I will see you in October. Take care.